One of the gospel readings today will be from John 12, a little bit later on. Very interesting set of scriptures and lots of things that we could explore about the situation that's taking place within the scriptures that are going to be read. But there's something particular about what Jesus says that I want to draw your attention to. In John 12, verse 24, Jesus says these words, "Truly I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." And in other words, Jesus is saying this, that life comes through death. Now, in that context, which you're going to see as the scriptures are read a little bit later on, Jesus does talk about the way that he is going to die. And there's even an allusion to his death, and I believe we can argue his burial and his resurrection. But more specifically, Jesus makes the point, that it was going to be through his death that many would come to life. That's why he says this, "And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." In other words, he was the seed that was going to go into the ground, as it were, and through him, much fruit would be produced, that all men would come unto me. Now, obviously, this is an allusion to the cross, but Jesus is essentially putting himself as the grain, as the seed that's going to die, as it were, and is going to produce much fruit. And I don't think Jesus is just talking about his own death, though. He was also talking about how his followers were going to die to themselves, that is, deny themselves. And that's why he says in verse 25 of John 12, he talks about those who are going to lose their lives and those who are going to save their lives. And he says those who would save their lives will follow his example. Verse 26, "If anyone serves me," he says, "he must follow me. And where I am, there will my servant be also." And I love the language that Paul uses later on when he says that we are buried with him, that we are raised with him to walk in newness of life with him, that we are seated in the heavenly places with him. And that happens as we continue to die to ourselves, that is, deny ourselves. That's taking up the cross, denying yourselves. And I love the picture that is painted here. And I don't want you to miss this. Okay? Because when we think of dying to ourselves, we oftentimes, and a lot of things, we think of like big chunks. We think of big things. We don't think we're doing anything for the Lord unless it's big and massive. We don't think the church is doing anything unless there's this one huge big thing that the church does. We don't think we're dying to ourselves unless like a large chunk of us just dies, and we see that. But what this scripture tells us and what it demonstrates to us is that the dying happens in small pieces. I love the picture painted here of something small dying off and then something new being born. And it is indeed the case that as we carry our crosses, we die to ourselves. And as we die to ourselves, we begin to see those parts of us that have died as the old self, as the old person. Like we begin to actually see who we used to be. And we say, yes, that's the old self, the old man. It only happens that as we continue to carry our cross. And just like a small seed, right? A small seed produces fruit many times its size. That when we die to these small parts of us, it has the power to produce some massive transformation within us as we die slowly to ourselves. As I've stated throughout this series, this is really what Lent should be about. Us denying ourselves, us dying to ourselves. This is what I invite you to participate in. This is what we're invited to engage in. And I've already told you guys what I was doing through this season. And you're going to hear more about that in a couple of weeks. Probably on Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday. And in fact, some of you have told me what you're doing and the challenges that you faced and how you felt like maybe you have bitten off more than you can chew. Usually if you're feeling that way, you're doing it right. But today, I thought it would be good for you to hear from someone else about their experience. Because we could talk about these concepts of these things that we can do to just die to ourselves, to become more aware, to be more intentional about being God-centered. And all that sounds good, right? And you might even think, well, that's just for the most holy, righteous people, right? That's for people, well, I was going to say that's for people like me. My wife would disagree with that. You might think, well, that sounds good for you, super spiritual, right? Or for preachers, or for people who are in certain roles. Like we have these ideas of who this fits. Like who should be participating in this? That's not for me, but that's for you. It's almost like being a disciple is optional. I'm not worried about that, right? I've already punched my ticket and I'm waiting for Jesus to return. And so I can be done with this world. But all this other stuff that you might want to do to become more like Jesus, well, the gospel's not about any of that. Well, I would suggest go read the gospels. In fact, you can't read Matthew 5, 6, and 7 and come away with those conclusions. This journey is about being transformed into the image of Jesus. Scripture uses the term sanctification. It uses the concept of us being taken out of the kingdom of darkness and transplanted into the kingdom of your Son. It uses language that talks about us partaking in the divine nature. You can't separate that from any of your concepts of what faith is, what grace is, what anything else. That's a part of the journey. It's who we are. And in fact, if you separate that, I dare say that faith and what faith is, well, maybe it's not even a part of who we are. Because it's what leads to these things. So you may be asking, you may be wondering, maybe questioning, maybe you doubts, maybe you're just not even listening when it comes to when we talk about spiritual practices, things that we are very intentional about doing to help bring us closer and become more God-centered. These aren't things that were created within the 20th or the 21st century. These are things that have been going on with God's people for as far back as we can research. So this isn't anything new, not to time and space, but it is new to us. And so you've been invited to participate in these ways, to open your minds and hearts to doing things like this. But you may be asking, well, is there really anything to it? Is it profitable at all? You may want to know what it's like. And I could give you my own experiences. And you can say, well, that's just you. You're a preacher, and we should expect that from you. So today, we're going to hear from someone else. Someone else who has done this completely on their own, okay, with no prodding. I didn't pay them anything to do this. They just did it. And so you're going to have the luxury of hearing from them a little bit later on. But here's the thing. When it comes to dying to yourself, you don't have to wait to participate in a practice like fasting or any of the other spiritual disciplines. You don't have to wait. You can practice denying yourself right here, right now, where you are today, in this space as we're gathered together. Say, how do I do that? Well, let's just be honest with ourselves. You may not want to be here. Right? You may not want to be here. And if you don't want to be here, here's how you die to yourself. Where you're sitting right now, submit to the things that are happening, that are going on. Focus and pay attention to the words that are spoken, that are sung, that are prayed, words from other people that you're going to hear. Submit to this process as we're here together today. Maybe you don't like something. Maybe we do something. Maybe we sing something. Maybe somebody says something and you don't like it. But instead of focusing on your feelings, maybe it's the time to focus on other people and how beneficial this might be for others. How this is feeding others. How others might be becoming saturated with the things that they need. So die to yourself. Maybe you're stuck in your own head. And if you're stuck in your head, you know what I mean. Maybe you're stuck in your own head. Maybe right now you can't get out of your own head and You can't stop focusing on things that are going on inside of your life. You can't stop focusing on the things that you have to do tomorrow. You can't stop focusing on those things that are eating away at you. Maybe it's your problems, the issues that you have to face. Maybe it was what happened last week. Maybe it's what's been going on in your life since as far as you can remember. Whatever it is, maybe, just maybe, you're stuck in your own head. Well, here's a place that can help you come out of that. You can die to yourself, deny that part of you, and say, you know what, I need help. And so at any time during our time here together today, maybe you just need to pray. Instead of being focused on what's inside of here, maybe you need to be intentional about focusing on the one who died to himself so that we could follow his example, and wherever we are, there he is. And so maybe you just need to pray. I would suggest to you that if you do need to do that at any time, you grab somebody. Grab somebody. Go out in the foyer and pray. If you're out in the foyer, you better be praying. I'm just going to assume you're praying if you're hanging out there. But seriously, grab someone. Pray. Help them help you come out of this place. And be very intentional about being in this place. All right, so today we're officially going to end this series called Lent 101. And I want to encourage you that if you have not been able to listen to or watch or haven't been here to participate in this series, I would encourage you to go online and watch those. I believe we have all the way up to the week before last up. No, week before that. We have last week's up. Okay. So yeah, we're caught up. You want to go check that out, especially last week's, which really did a lot of explaining of the concept behind fasting and prayer. And so just to kind of introduce what we're going to do today, remind you of what that is, okay, when we talk about fasting and prayer. Fasting is oftentimes viewed, especially during the season of Lent, as people just giving things up. You're just going to give something up. And then we say, why you give it up and you're going to come back and get it? Well, you know what? Here's the thing. You don't necessarily give things up for Lent, okay, or for any other time that you don't expect to return to it. The point is not to give things up. The point is not the thing that you're giving up. The point is you're going to choose something in your life that you engage in on a regular basis, that you will miss if you're not doing it, that anything that will spark your mind and turn your heart to remind you to pray, which will remind you to be more centered on God. That's the point. And it's okay to give something up and just go back to it. In fact, based on our conversation today, you're gonna know why it's okay to go back to something you gave up. In fact, you want sometimes to go back to the thing you gave up because it could be just downright horrible. So, that being said, okay, it doesn't mean that you can't use it as an opportunity to give up things that you don't want to return to. That's fine as well. But remember, fasting is not just about giving things up to give things up. That's not the goal. The goal is to help you become more God-centered, okay? And so and maybe fasting isn't the thing for you to do. Maybe there's something else, okay? But this is all about fasting and prayer. It's something that you see throughout Scripture. It's something that the Israelites did as a nation together. It's something that you see in Scripture where communities of believers, churches did together. And in a large degree, it's become kind of like a lost practice among us. And I think in a country where we are bombarded and we thrive on consumerism, it probably should be a discipline that is practiced more fervently here today than has ever been. That being said, it's something very foreign to us. We don't understand what's behind it. We don't understand what goes on, what's the process, why do you do this? Okay, it's one thing for me to be up here and explain some things to you. It's another thing for you to experience it. Okay, it's another thing you experience it. I can make it sound good. I could even make it sound fun, right? But you know good and well that once you get down in the dirt with it, it doesn't sound so good anymore, and it stops being fun. Then what? Well, that's when the work starts, right? That's really when the work starts. And so this morning, I am going to, I've joked about this, and it must be the worst thing to be a preacher's wife and family because we use them as the butt of jokes a lot, I've told you that my wife last year decided that she was going to give up caffeine. Now, you may not think that's a big deal, but trust me, it is the worst deal. And it can be. But her experience was very profitable and was something that she chose to do it on her own. I don't force my wife to do anything, but she didn't, it wasn't like I said, woman, you're going to do this. It's not our relationship. It's not like that at all, right? At all. It was something that she chose to do on her own. And I supported it all the way. I was glad when she drank some caffeine. And the kids were too. And you're going to hear all about that. And so if you will, join me in welcoming Mindi, my wife, to the stage. Okay, so here a couple of prefaces here, okay? So this is my wife, Mindi. She's the one that gave me all those beautiful girls that I had 6 today. 6 girls today. 6. It was great, though. I love being able to watch them, how they express their faith, and they get loud and crazy sometimes. But preface a few things here, okay? And I feel like I just have to say these things because I'm not in a place where I feel like I don't have to. Our house is not much different from your own. It's not some special, holy, sacred place because I'm a preacher, okay? If it's sacred and holy, it's because of my wife, and she cleans really well. That being said, I am a preacher. And so the things we do may look a little different from you, but they may not, okay? Don't think, oh, well, yeah, see, you would expect that in a preacher's home. It's like, no. In a lot of ways, we were like this before I became a preacher. I never wanted to do this, okay? I never wanted to. And now I can't live without it. I cannot not do it. Our house looks not much different from your own. We have kids. Things get crazy. Things are just nuts. And we only have 4, though. Some of you have more. And, our house isn't like yours. But we understand the difficulties, okay? This isn't some super spiritual environment where it's easy to do this sort of thing, because it's not. It's not. And we deal with a lot of the same issues, a lot of the same hardships that you face, okay? That being said, we do some things that I would hope that all of us would do as Christians. They may look a little bit different for you than they do for us, but we do what works for us. We do have studies with our kids. We do have lots of conversations about God and about faith and about, our kids are surrounded and inundated with it. It doesn't mean that they're going to be perfect, so don't judge them just because they're a preacher's kid. You know just as well as I do, they could be the worst. I'm not saying mine are, I'm just saying. But we all deal with the same stuff, okay? We do some things where God is always, we make the initiative to make God centered in our lives, in our home, everything from the way that it's decorated to the things that we do. At night, you show up at my house 8 o'clock at night, you know what you're going to see? More than likely, there's something on TV that is God-centered, faith-based, focused. Some guy preaching, more than likely, some guy teaching. There's something going on, some series that's happening that we're engaged in. My wife is going to play her, what do you do on your iPad anyway? She plays some little game, but she's engaged in it as well. So you're going to see some of that while you might be watching another TV series or a movie. And we do that too as well. We watch sports. She's got into this whole March Madness thing, which she has no clue about basketball at all. I say all that just to say this. We're normal people, I think. We're normal people, okay? So don't think oh, that's for y'all super spiritual, et cetera, like, no, it ain't nothing like that, okay? It ain't nothing like that. And our closest friends, they know that as well. So, that being said, my wife last year determined that she was going to participate in the season of Lent, and I'm going to have her, we're going to do kind of like a little interview and have her explain to you her process, her experience, what she went through, and maybe there's some things that you can take away from that as well. And so, that being said, tell us why you decided to participate in the season of Lent last year.
I fasted for a while. It was just something that the Lord had kind of put on my heart to do just during some spiritual battles in our family. And I just had felt that fasting was a way to kind of push through that. And so Lent rolled around, and I thought, well, if I've done it for 2 days or 3 days or a week, why can't I do it for 40? So I guess 2 years prior, I gave up Facebook, which was hard. It was really difficult, but it was great. And so then last year rolled around, and what am I going to give up this time? And the way I fast, I ask the Lord, what are you wanting me to give up? What are you wanting me to fast from? There was one time when I just had vegetables for a weekend. There was one time when I just did protein shakes. So for last Lent, I asked the Lord, what do you want me to give up? And as I was listening and kind of taking things in, I realized I am totally 100% dependent on caffeine. And so the Lord said, give up caffeine. And I said, no, because that is my lifeline. And he said, yes, you are dependent on caffeine, and you really need to be dependent on me. And so that's why I did it.
So you chose caffeine because?
Because I was too dependent on it, and I needed to be more dependent on God to get me through the days. When I started adding up how much caffeine I was taking in, it was over 1,000 milligrams. That's like excessive. I would have a pre-workout before I would work out, and then 2 hours later, I'd have a big mug of coffee. And then about 3 hours later, I would have another mug of coffee. And it was just, I needed more and more and more to get me through my day. And the Lord was just said, you need to be looking to me to get through your day instead of filling up your coffee cup.
Okay, so walk us through the 40 days. What was it like each week? Did it get easier, harder? What were some of the things that you had to deal with?
The first week was horrendous. I decided to go cold turkey. No caffeine, period. No tea, no nothing. Nothing. And so, I get up at 5:30 every morning to go work out. And so my day starts at 5:30. And then I don't go to bed till about 10. And so it was a full day of no caffeine. And of course, it started on Wednesday, and so Wednesday and Thursday were okay. By Friday, the physical pain was outrageous. My head was hurting, my neck was hurting, my shoulders were hurting. It was incredibly painful. It just so happens that Fridays are Adam's day off. Which was a huge blessing because I spent the day in my bed because I couldn't function. And I remember laying in my bed crying. And I was put in a place where, I saw Jesus walking down the road with his cross. I saw the scars and the beatings, and I began to, in a very trite way, feel the pain of Jesus. I felt that physical suffering of Jesus. And that didn't even let up for another 2 weeks into it. By the last week, by the first week, I was like, well, about a week and the pain should go away. And by the middle of the second week, I'm thinking, this should be going away. Why is it not going away? And so I researched it, and some people said it can last up to 2 to 3 weeks. And I just took in a deep breath, and I was like, okay, let's do this. Um, so the physical pain subsided around week 2. By week 3 and 4, the cravings started edging off, and I felt like I was making it through okay. But by the last 2 weeks, before Easter came, the cravings got even more. I mean, it was like an insatiable desire. I just needed caffeine. And that kind of took me aback. I thought, by the time I get to 40 days in, this should be easy. It shouldn't be a problem. But by the last 2 weeks, it was all I could do not to give in. It was almost harder than the first 2 weeks.
Okay. Now, fasting has the potential to bring out the worst in us. Okay. And tell us about, and now remember, I'm the preacher. I'm sitting right here. Don't lie. Did you come face to face with any of those unpleasantries?
Very much so. Aside from the physical pain, I was angry, and I was frustrated, and I was irritable. For those that don't know, I have 4 girls, and I homeschool all 4 of them. And we do dance, and we do co-op, and we have different events that the kids are into. And so I'm not just a stay-at-home mom. I am everything rolled up in one, and I have to be on all the time. And one of the rules that we have is you have to have all your schoolwork done and all your chores done before you can have your phone. And I have to check to make sure that those are done properly. None of this just trying to get by business. And so every day my girls were terrified to ask me if I could check their rooms so that they could have their phone. Because I would just fly off the handle. It didn't matter what it was. I would just fly off the handle. And so I was angry, I was frustrated, I was irritable. There was one night, I questioned who I was. Because I'm seeing all this taking place, and I'm trying not to let it affect my kids and my family because they didn't ask for this. And I'm sitting on the couch one night, and I look at Adam, and I'm like, is this who I really am? Is this the real me? Because the other me was addicted to caffeine, and I was bubbly, and I was happy, and I was great, but I'm mean, and I'm angry, and I'm horrible. Who am I? Like, I even questioned myself. I didn't know who I was. I also couldn't carry on a conversation. Bless you guys for talking to me during that time last year. Because honestly, I wasn't focused. I had brain fog, and anytime I would talk to people, I really didn't know what y'all were saying. I was just trying to nod and get through and try to figure out what I was saying and what others were saying to me. It was rough.
Okay, and so as these things are surfacing, coupled with the urges, to have the caffeine because you think that's going to fix it all right there, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's your
There were
solution.
actually even times, I even realized that it wasn't necessarily drinking the caffeine even. It was holding a warm cup of coffee. Like, it was such an emotional tie too. It wasn't just the caffeine that I needed. It was the emotional tie of holding a warm cup of coffee. And it's so funny. I was talking to somebody about it afterwards, and I was telling her this, and she said, how ironic that Jesus is the one who's supposed to fill your cup. He is that cup. But I was going to a physical cup just to hold.
And so as those urges and feelings, as you become more aware of, how you're responding and what's surfacing, what'd you do? How did you respond to those things that you became more aware of?
I prayed a lot.
So this is where the whole God-centered thing comes in. Okay? Up to this point, you're just like, wow, that's miserable. Like, why would you put yourself through that, right? Well, here's the point.
As soon as I would wake up in the morning, and I'm not exaggerating, as soon as my eyes opened in the morning, I literally asked the Lord to carry me through this day. Because my kids didn't deserve this. They didn't ask for this. They don't need to get the brunt of whatever my issues are. My husband doesn't need to get the brunt of whatever my issues are. He has enough to deal with. I have to get through my day. So as soon as I would wake up in the morning, I would ask the Lord, I need you to carry me through because I can't do this. And then when the cravings would come, I would, Lord, let me be dependent on you in this moment. I don't need the caffeine. I need you. Help me to be dependent on you. And then there were times, I remember so many times, lunch is always a crazy time for me because I'm trying to get kids food and we're still wrapping up school and everybody's going crazy and everybody wants to eat and, ooh, I don't like that and, oh, I want this. And, I'm trying to fix a million different things and it's just crazy. And in the meantime, they're wanting me to check their rooms so that they can have their phones. And there were many times just as I'm getting lunch ready, I put everything down and I literally closed my eyes and voiced, I can't do this anymore. Lord, help me. So the prayer that was what got me through everything. I prayed for my kids during that time. I prayed that they would be able to I prayed it wouldn't scar them. We as parents have this, we have a load to carry, and you hear about all these things that scarred you as in your childhood, and I did not want giving up coffee to scar my children. And so I prayed for them. I prayed for Adam because I try to make home sacred for him. When he comes off of work, I try to have that as, his space. And when I don't have caffeine, I'm not that kind of person. And so I prayed for him to ask the Lord to help me be the wife that I needed to be for him. There was a lot of praying. I mean, it was almost all day long praying for 40 days.
And the thing about it is our kids that witness this, you might think, wow, what an experience. Why would you put your kids through that? And our kids have a very active faith in our home, and yours do as well, as whether or not whether you recognize it. And this has been a very great learning experience for them as well, because now they know, now they're aware, right? And this is something that their eyes have been opened to, whereas growing up myself, it was non-existent. Fasting, that's just something they did in the Bible because they were poor or desperate, or it's just some weird cultural thing. But it has been a good learning experience for our kids. So what did you take away from this experience?
First of all, temptation is real. There would be well-meaning people who love me dearly, who could see my suffering and didn't want me to suffer. And they would try to help figure out remedies. Well, what about tea? It's all natural. I'm like, it's caffeine, and I'm not going there. Temptation was laid right in front of me. And then that brought me back to the temptation of Jesus. He fasted for 40 days, and he was tempted, and he didn't give in. And I know he's Jesus. I know he's perfect. I know I'm not. But it gave me more respect for what Jesus did. And it helped me realize that Jesus understands me in this moment. And so I was able to lean on Jesus during those temptations. So temptation is real, and it is in the front. It's right there in front of you. And everybody has coffee. I'd come to church on Sunday mornings, and there's coffee. There's a coffee bar. People are walking around with coffee cups, and there would be some people, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I can't expect you to give up coffee because I'm giving up coffee. I have to be face to face with this temptation so that I can push through and trust the Lord. So temptation is real, but it can be overcome. Prayer changes everything. I've had so many people say, I couldn't do it. And I tell them, I couldn't either. I can't. It was through prayer and through God that got me through that. There's no other way. I've tried to give up different things, for my diet or whatever, and I can't do it. And I realized one time when I was trying to give up something while I was on my diet, it's because I wasn't seeking the Lord. And I thought, well, I went through 40 days without caffeine. How can I not give up a cookie, But it's because I wasn't seeking the Lord in that moment. So prayer changes everything. And then I think the biggest thing is there's power in suffering. I literally died to myself. Everything I knew about myself died. And I had to become a new person in some form or fashion. So I literally died. And in that suffering, I grew. And it made Resurrection Sunday, it made Easter so much better. Because I followed Jesus through the journey. I was tempted for 40 days. I've dealt with the suffering. I dealt with the lashes. I dealt with the pain. I dealt with the blood, the sweat, the tears. I dealt with the praying of, God, are you there? Can I let this cup pass? I dealt with, why have you forsaken me? And then I dealt with the death. And then Resurrection Sunday, I got my first cup of coffee. And honestly, I thought I was going to be so jittery and so crazy. I took the first sip of coffee, and I actually felt normal. I was me again. And I wasn't jittery. I wasn't flying off the handle. I could actually carry on a conversation. It made the resurrection even more real. So there's growth in the suffering. There's growth in the pain. And there is life in the death.
So you went back to caffeine?
I did. To save everybody.
Did it make null and void anything that you experienced?
Not at all. No. Not at all. I'm more aware of my caffeine intake now.
You don't drink as much caffeine
I do
anymore.
not. I refuse to go back to that point because I want to be dependent on God. I don't want to be dependent on caffeine. Yes, I drink it. Yes, I need it in the mornings. But it's not near what it was. And my faith in God has grown more for it.
So are you going to do that again?
Give up coffee? No. No. I wouldn't put anybody else through that again. It was a great experience. It was a great learning experience. But unless the Lord tells me to do it again, I am not.
Okay. All right. So, did I pay you to do this?
No. Because it wouldn't matter anyway.
Didn't beg you or anything, right? You
No.
did this all on your own accord.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, I had never even done anything for Lent, so I was like, okay, whatever you want to do. I didn't feel the need to do that. But seeing her go through what she went through, and then the kids being aware of that as well, and then still to this day, we experience the effects of that. just the less dependency upon caffeine and the awareness of what what you're dependent upon, and in how responding, reacting, which is huge. And the way our kids recognized the difficulties that came with that, for me, was huge. So, all right.
Also, too, one of the big things that helped me, I know people say, fast in secret, and I know he covered that last week, I think. Another thing that helped me through was a core group of people, because this was a big deal. There were a few people that I called on, and I said, look, this is what I'm doing for Lent, and I need your prayers. And so when in days where I couldn't pray, I would text them, and I'm struggling, and I just need you to pray. And so having a community, a group that you can go to when you can't do it anymore, really helped me as well.
All right. Well, everybody, my wife, Mindi, thank you. So I hope this series has been helpful to you. If you need to discuss more things, have questions, help with whatever, please don't hesitate to come. Let's have a conversation with us, okay? And we're going to pray here in a moment. Some of our prayer team members are going to be up here. If you're on the prayer team and you're going to be up here, will you go ahead and make your way up here right now? And we're going to pray, and we'll dismiss after this prayer. But I hope you guys have benefited from this series. I hope that you will engage in practices like these and others. If you have questions, you want more resources about that, just come and talk to me. There are other people who are participating in this as well. Then we can have conversations, and so it's a great learning experience, especially whenever you consider the importance of being more self-aware of your issues, and then how God is there to help us through those things if we but just surrender. Okay, and so we're going to pray, and we're going to dismiss after this, and I hope that this has been a blessing to you. Okay, our Father, we thank you for this day. We ask that you would bless us as we work through the various trials and temptations that we have in our own lives, in our own situations, wherever we are. Meet us there as we believe you will. Help open our eyes to the strength that you have and the power that you have, that's the grace that you have that is there available to us to wrestle with life, wrestle with the evil, wrestle with the temptations, to wrestle with even our false selves as we become more and more aware of really who we are, who we're really meant to be, and that person that we're designed, that life we're designed to live. And we thank you for these opportunities to become just more aware of these things, to walk in this journey, to become more and more like you. Please continue to hold our hands, wrap your arms around us, give us the strength that we need to live this life in dedication and submission to you, to truly live that abundant life. So it's in all these things that we pray in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus. Amen.